welcome you all to the first ever online VIP booking business meeting. For those of you who don't really know me, I'm Ronnie Didriksen, and I'm the founder and CEO of VIP Booking. I see many of you already know about VIP Booking. For 20 years, we actually been in business providing tools for professionals in the live music industry, and we have clients in more than 50 countries using VIP Booking daily. And most of you, as I said, many of you already use it because you have access before others, and promoters and talent buyers are using it basically to find information about 20,000 artists, managers and agents. And our agents and manager clients are using it to find talent buyers, promoters of more than 4,000 venues in the system. I'm located in Denmark, where we have an office which is pretty close by now, pretty empty. And just to give you a short update about Denmark, we are slowly opening up again now after 5 weeks of lockdown. But like many other countries around the world, Danish festivals and other events during the summer will not take place. It's tough times for the live music industry, no doubt about it. We really have, as Nana said, we really have to help each other in this turbulent situation. First of all, we need to save lives, and then we need to save our businesses, secondly. And this is what the panel is all about today. It's about what will come after this and how's the situation now. I'm really excited about today's panel, and all the seats are booked. We have a full house, sold out. 100 have signed up to join this event. Not sure everybody is there yet, but I'll keep admitting people along the way. But I'm not really that surprised that a lot of people are interested in joining in, because as Nana said, we need to see each other. We can't go to the conferences, the live conferences for now. So, and it's a brilliant lineup we have. We have some great people in the panel and some great people viewing the panel that can actually chip in and tell us about their situations later on. So just before I'm giving the microphone over to moderator Ivana, I'll just say a few practical things. This is new to us as well, using Zoom for big meetings like this, but I assume most of you has just learned how to use Zoom over the last 6 weeks, and Rob just learned it today. So there is a few guidelines. During the panel discussion, it would be good if you mute your microphones, all of you, unless not the panel, of course, just to make sure that we don't talk and we don't hear noises behind. And as I can see, a lot of you have turned on your camera, which is great. If you are dressed and looking decent, which can be hard for some of us, it's perfect to have the camera on. It's because then we feel closer to each other. It's you are allowed to turn off the camera if you don't want it on, which is also okay, and just listening in to the conversation. The panel is set for 45 minutes, and after that there will be some possibilities to ask some questions and come in with some other comments. So there's nothing left for me to say than lean back, have a coffee or a beer, Peter, and then I'll give it over to our moderator, Ivana, to handle it from here. Enjoy.
Yeah, hello everybody. Thanks, Ronnie, for the introduction, and thanks for setting up this meeting. Thanks for the VIP team. And it's great, it's really amazing to see you all on the screens and see so many faces. It makes it really familiar here. And yeah, in this Zoom meeting. So yeah, I hope every one of you is well and healthy. Thanks, Nana, for sharing your experience. I think that was also very important for us to hear, and it's great to hear you're well. So yeah, that's the main topic today. We just want to talk about the current situation, the crisis, and I'd like to welcome our 3 panelists today, our 3 guests. So I'll start with the lady first. So it's Paulina Ahokas from the Tampere Hall. So welcome, Paulina.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so yeah, I would say Paulina is a pioneer of the Finnish cultural and events industries. So she's the managing director of the Tampere Hall, and also a member of the Finnish Arts Council and board member of the Finnish broadcasting company YLE and Music and Media Finland. So a lot of jobs you do right now. And
there's actually a couple. I'm no longer a member of the Arts Council, but then there's other things that have come up since.
Okay. Before that, you've managed the Music Export Finland, so you have a long experience in working in the live and music industry. And I said welcome and curious and excited to have you here. The second one is Christof Huber. Christof is the director of festivals of the newly formed Gadget ABC Entertainment Group from Switzerland, and this includes festivals like Open Airs and Holland, Summer Days Festival, Unique Moments and Seaside Festival. And Christof books most of these events too. And Christof is also General Secretary and Board Member of the European Festival Association Europe. So Christof, welcome to this panel. Great to have you here. And the third one is Rob Berends. Rob is the founder of the Paperclip agency from Holland. And he started that agency in 1981. And 1995, his partner, Hilde, joined the company. So there's two of you running that company right now.
Yep.
And yes, your work for artists such as Seth Jordan, Lifeskull, Pussy Riot, and you've been booking many international artists all across Europe, and representing many of them in the Netherlands too. So thanks for joining this panel.
Thank you very much. Well, and we were probably the first agency outside of London, England, to do a lot of full European tours for artists from all over the world, which didn't always go down well with the colleagues in London. And in 1986, I started something called The Network at that moment, and later on Network Europe, and that was a cooperation for small and medium-sized agencies and promoters from all over Europe. And that was before we had Eurosonic and before we had festival associations. So that was 1986 already. It was an idea from a Belgian friend, by the way, so credits to Belgium.
So you have a lot of experiences to tell us about and a lot of new things you joined, like this.
And I see a lot of familiar names
here right now. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so I think in the current situation, every one of us is not on the same page in terms of knowing what is going around in every single country in Europe. So let's start with a brief overview of the countries our panelists come from. So Paulina, Christof, and Rob, could you tell us more about the situation in your countries? Are you still in a lockdown? How is the medical situation? Paulina, would you like to start?
Yes. For us, I think it was the 16th of March when events were prohibited altogether, and all of different venues. We're both an operator of a venue, and we are a promoter in various venues. We organize a bit over 1,000 events in Tampere Hall, and from arena concerts to little events and free events around the country. Of course, with somebody paying for the costs. So it started on the 16th of March, and now just yesterday it was announced that all events are cancelled until end of July, and that it's very likely that events will only start developing gradually after that. We will hear more news in the course of this week, and it's very likely, we've gone very much the direction of Holland in the process. So it's very likely that there will be a gradual. They also announced that there will be a gradual opening of things. So it's probably that schools might open first, then some restaurants, and then very likely that events over 500 under 500 will start opening up from August onwards or something like that. But we certainly don't have events in the course of the summer.
Okay. Rob, how does it
look? That's just the situation in brief.
Okay, thank you.
I think we will go more into detail of how companies have reacted, what different companies have and organizers have done, sort of to react to the situation, how much cancellation and how much they've moved their events to further. We will discuss that later on, I believe.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, the summer festivals, for example, will be now cancelled. Quite a few of them already gave announcements about it, but now the rest will be confirmed until the end of July.
Okay, thank you. Rob, what's the situation in Holland? You have a lot of restrictions across Europe.
Yeah, we call it an intelligent lockdown. It's not. I don't know why. Some other countries say we have an anarchistic lockdown, which sounds really weird. I can't imagine our liberal conservative government doing anarchistic things. But anyway, we have new measures since 2 days, and that means that the ban on major events that need to apply for a permit or need to register themselves, that ban was until June 1 and is now extended until September 1. But actually, the last 2 weeks, the industry has asked for this. Our live music industry has asked for a clear ban on all major summer events. Now, that's a decision from the government, this ban until September 1 for these bigger events. We have 25 security regions in the Netherlands, and they have their own powers. And a couple of weeks ago, they already decided that the ban until June 1 that we had at that moment would also be valid for smaller events, smaller shows, so in indoor concerts. We don't know yet what the security regions will do with the directives from the government that were issued 2 days ago. We don't know if they will extend the ban for the smaller shows also to September 1. And that's a bit speculative. So I guess we'll know today or tomorrow when they publish their decisions. And it might very well be that we'll see some relaxation so that some things can be experimented with. The cinemas in the Netherlands have just published their plan on how to deal with the situation and how to maybe make showing movies possible again, and that means that they will be working with a capacity of 25%. And that's a proposal that they are now have presented to the authorities. Maybe we should wait and see what's going to happen with that, what the authorities decide on that, and if it will start soon, this experiment, maybe we can learn from that for the live music business. But of course, cinemas is seated; it's not standing. Yeah. So with standing, if you want to do it safe, maybe you have to go down to a capacity of 8%, which is, of course, that's no business model. That's never going to work. So that's a bit where we are. Schools for the younger until 12 will open up again, I think in 1 or 2 weeks, maybe a bit, 2 weeks. But then it will be 50%. So then what we do in the Netherlands is the government says, these are the guidelines, and now your sector will have to come up with plans that fit with what we think is sane and is legal and is healthy. So they give it back to society, and society has to say to the government, now this is our plan, what do you think? And then the security regions get involved as well, of course. So we're waiting for schools to submit proposals on how to do it. Maybe 50% of the children on day 1 and 50% of the children on day 2. Maybe another way. Okay. So that's experiments too, and I think our sector needs to wait until other sectors that are maybe more crucial to the economy or to children, the future, have tried a few things, and we can see how that affects the curve.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Christof. What about Switzerland? I think you don't have some governmental restrictions for the industry right now. Is it still the truth, or can you tell us more about Switzerland?
I think Switzerland was probably one of the first countries who made the ban for bigger events up, from 1,000 up. That was at the end of February already. Mm-hmm. And that, of course, led to a lot of, cancellations, because on the same day, the ban was valid. So we had a show in Zurich at the Holland Stadium where the ban already started to build the show, and they had to, you know, pack the trucks and go home. Since then, of course, all the restrictions have been, you know, more, and the lockdown is here. The situation right now is that, you know, we're waiting in terms of the summer. The restrictions are clear for schools and certain shops until, you know, in mid of May and then beginning of June. What we expected as the festival industry, and there's plenty of festivals, that last week there was a press conference and the decision will be made, because, I mean, you all have the news about Denmark, France, Italy, Austria, you know, with bans sometimes for the whole summer. So we expected this decision. Most of the festivals waited for this, and then the Swiss government decided to discuss again, and so we have to wait until next Wednesday, which is very unfortunate, because slowly the audience doesn't understand what's happening. Some festivals like Paleo Festival, Montreux, they pulled the plug. They postponed the festival to next year because they said the pressure was too high from sponsors, from the audience. But it's involved with a certain risk. We can talk about that, why a lot of festivals still waiting. Yeah. And at the moment, you know, in the first weeks, for me, the special thing was because we focused so much on the promoters' work. I mean, all the headline shows, club shows to postpone. And within 1 week, the whole plan was, you know, you could put it in the garbage, because the situation changed so quickly. And I would say from, of course, mid of March, my role is now a balanced role between Europe and Switzerland. On one side, we're looking for our shows and festivals, but we had a lot of conversations in the last weeks by Zoom, actually, with all our members, and which was very important, I think, to get the feedbacks, and we're collecting, distributing all the news. But at the moment we're waiting. I don't expect, you know, St. Gallen, Open St. Gallen won't take place. We are in negotiations with agents and with our sponsors, also with the state and government about solutions. Actually, I don't think August will happen, and probably we have to work on solutions. If I collect all the feedbacks from, you know, all over Europe, I don't see a serious option or a big hope that we will promote shows bigger than 500 within the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. 2 questions. So for all the 3 of you, is there any restriction or any definition? What does it mean, a large event? Because all the countries are telling there is a ban of large events, but sometimes there is not a definition about it. So what about your countries? And the second thing, as Christof, you mentioned it right now, why is it important for all of you to get an official decision from the government that there is a festival ban or events ban? So Christof, probably you can continue with that.
Well, I think in Switzerland, and I think in most countries, the restriction is clear. I heard from Germany that it's very, what is a big event, you know? And then I think that's one of the really the worst gains at the moment. In Switzerland, the beginning was the same, that, okay, the government decides, and then certain restrictions, every state can decide on certain restrictions, which leads in a complete mess. And I think they took it back now to the government level, and most decisions are made by the Swiss government, which I think in these times is the right one. In terms of the festivals, I mean, we all will end up, even if we cancel the festival or if we postpone the festival, there are certain costs and the damage which will be here, and we have to try to cover this. Certain countries have, you know, programs for this, and we are, you know, all working from home and on short work basically, but there will be costs in the end for all these postponements, because, you know, we have rentals, we have wages for the festival is prepared, and I think most of the festival want this force majeure decision to be clear. There are great laws, like I think the solution in Portugal is great, to have like the possibility to have a force majeure 90 days after the end of the lockdown or the state of emergency, which gives the festivals or the promoters kind of a decision to say, I can't promote it properly, so I have to pull the plug. But I think a lot of festivals are just afraid that there could be a case of any kind legal kind of battles with maybe artists. I don't think so, but also maybe you know, stage builders, maybe companies who worked for you, and it has to be clear that it's force majeure, because we have a damage, we will have a tough time to get to the next summer. What most festivals just don't try to risk is to have another legal battle besides that. That is not, you know, it's not, we don't need that. We have enough problems, I think.
Yeah, okay. Paulina, you
Yes.
were just agreeing with that, and yeah.
In terms of Finland, at the moment the restriction is still on for any event that has, or anything where over 10 people come together, and even smaller groups are advised not to meet. So, but that will end. Perttu Pesa is there. Are you, Perttu, there? Can you put your mic on? Isn't it so that after the 13th of May until end of July, there's a consideration that events under 500 could take place? Isn't that the case?
Yes, that's a suggest what the government made, and because we can make it because our legislation, we just have to do it nearer to the timeline. So next time the local government is going to maybe tell us that 50 people can actually meet to each other. So we are going.
It's coming really slowly and very gradually. Yeah. But it's but the thing is, you know, the challenge, adding to what just Christof said, is that the challenge is that there are, of course, a lot of venues, for example, and a lot of artists that can perform to groups of 50 and 100 and that type of things. But the challenge for many of us, for promoters, is that, you know, for example, in Finland, there's a person in a risk group in every third family, in every third household. So it means that most of these people are not basically going to move anywhere. They're not going to make any purchases until there's no risk of anybody getting affected. So the challenge is that how on earth are you going to make ticket sales for even smaller events? Of course, the future will tell, and of course we will do our very best to actually get some kind of action going, and people, you know, people getting to gigs and livelihood for all of those working in the industry. And I'm counting in everybody who's working in techniques and lighting and sound and everything in it as well. But it's also of what Nana just there was talking about, is that we have a huge responsibility also in that. When is it going to be safe? When is it going to be? When do we want to be involved in possibly spreading the disease? What's the strategy? Are we going to seek for group immunity through, you know? So it's the challenge, I suppose, is that all of us need to be making scenarios of that. Okay, we are going to be making costs, and we don't actually manage to sell tickets. So it means that we are not just doing less of income, but we're also making bigger losses. So my quick question at the moment overall is the fact that which one are we going to choose? Just like really lowering down, or like taking the hit of huge gap in turnover, but also making our very best in like bringing all the costs down? Or are we going to accept the fact that we might be making even bigger losses by actually doing things that are not going to happen, or the ticket buyers are not going to come to? So it's I'm looking at the moment more into the option of trying to like come ends meet with a lot less income and really taking all the costs down rather than making huge losses.
Okay. Thanks, Paulina. One question to Rob, as Christof mentioned, the work with the artists and the legal things. What's your position right now as an as an agent? How do you work now with promoters, and what are there any restrictions? How do you work with that situation right now? I mean, you have contracts, so do you keep strictly to that, or what is the role right now?
And first, the previous question, what is a major event, what is not? In the Netherlands, there's a clear definition. The events that are prohibited by the government are those that require a permit, and those that need to register. Now, a concert in the rock club around the corner does not require an individual permit, does not need to register. So those are not covered by the ban on events, not the government ban, but the security regions do include those in their ban, and that's a legal ban too. And of course, we have the 1.5 meters society, as we call it in the Netherlands, the 1,5 meter samenleving, or the 1.5 meters economy. So how do you run a show with 1.5 meters distance standing? That's practically impossible. Now, the second question that we had was about the act of God or the force majeure. We do need that, of course, so that maybe the industry, especially promoters, of course, and venues that have an insurance that covers this can actually get some money out of the insurance company, and then you also have a good position towards your suppliers that it's act of God, and that's why you break the contract. Now, your latest question, of course, we talk to a lot of promoters in the Netherlands and in other countries as well, and what we have seen is that everybody just accepts their own losses. All the parties so far. I see a shift in the mentality now, but I haven't seen it in daily life yet, but I feel it coming. People are talking about it, but the mentality up till now, as far as I've noticed, was that everybody says, well, there's nothing we can do about it. We're all in this together, and we're all going to suffer. And we're not going to sue each other. We're not going to demand. We're going to pretend that the show was never planned. We're going to pretend that the tour was never planned. And that's the attitude I've seen so far. And I think that is the attitude that we need, despite the fact that some will suffer more than others. And that's where we have to do other things. But that's not within our business, not within our sectors. In society, we need to support those that are suffering the most from this. So we need to lobby with the governments that there are good plans in place to make sure that people can keep their heads above the water. And that's something that we as a sector probably need to do outside of our sector, not just lobby for ourselves, but also for those that are most vulnerable in our sector. Yeah. Oh yeah, by the way, about size, Berlin has banned events for 5,000 and over until the 3rd week of October. Yes. So that's a definition that they use in Berlin.
How do you talk to festivals and promoters? Do you do that in general? I mean, to have the overview what every single country is doing right now isn't that easy. So
well, I've never been bad at that, but there's so much, and that's an understatement, I think. But okay, but now I'm being not very modest. But there's so much information, and this is such a spectacularly unique situation. We've never had this before. None of us have experienced World War II, I guess, and it's not a war, of course, like that, but it's similarly chaotic, and everything changes. I mean, we've had a government announcement extending the ban for major events for 3 months 2 days ago. The next announcement will be in less than 3 weeks. So every 3 weeks we get a new situation, and it's very difficult to keep up with what happens everywhere because it changes all the time. The latest decision in Finland was yesterday I hear about it today. There was no way I would have known yesterday, of course. Paulina probably did, and the other Finnish did. So that's very difficult. But we speak to, we do speak to everybody. I try to collect information from all possible sources and have an overview of what goes on. And it's very important what Christof said about festivals that decide whether to pull the plug or not. But if you do that in Switzerland, you have acts that are on tour in Europe. Other festivals where the act will play have already pulled the plug by government order or by themselves. So there are holes in the tour of the band. And that's something that forces your hand as well. The band simply can't afford to tour anymore. So then your festival will lose the bands even if there is no ban, even if you're officially allowed to continue.
Exactly.
And that undermines the whole thing as well, of course. And I think that's something, we're probably the latest sector that will get full freedom again. Because we bring
most
people...
of our big international shows for late autumn have been cancelled because the artists just will have had to cancel their tours.
Yeah.
We're looking at cancellation of shows until towards the end of this year.
Yeah, possibly.
I think
hopefully not.
It's fair to say, I mean, one of the positive elements is there's a really good dialogue right now happening, and it's not just between the sectors, I mean, means between festivals, which is great because we're collecting all the information from all the countries and send them out to our members to see what kind of new consumer laws we have, what kind of special advice we can give for rebookings, etc. But I think also that most of, and it was always like a fight between promoters and agents. I see it completely different at the moment. I think they're very reasonable. They're absolutely, I mean, all the big agencies in the US or in the UK, they have exactly the same problems. They have the same crisis. I mean, some of the first people who had to go was, I think in the US, was people from Paradigm on very short-term basis. They lost their jobs. And I think right now you feel that we are in the same boat. So they won't chase us for this. Of course, they can't decide for the artist. Maybe the artist is a bit, it feels that they should get some refundation, some money for production. And I think it's very important to have this dialogue right now. I think they're acting really reasonable, not chasing us because they're waiting as well on our decisions. But of course, the more common these decisions in Europe could be on the same time frame, it would be helpful for the agents to make the decision about the tour. And I think that's so frustrating here in Switzerland that we wait for this for another 2 weeks because we know it's not going to happen. And we could start the rebooking process, make life so much easier for also to get a quick decision. So far, it's like we're hanging in the line and waiting, which nobody's happy about that,
Well, what we do as an agency or as a Dutch promoter, if the agent is foreign, and sometimes we do just a band just for the Netherlands, or if we do a band for Europe, we think about booking shadow tours. Of course, alternative dates. Until there is a force majeure act of God decision from the government or the security regions or whatever, or your state in Germany, you pretend the show will happen as planned. But you know better, we all know better in the back of our heads, it's probably not going to happen until magically tomorrow the vaccine is there, which it won't be. But we have an alternative date, maybe in a half year's time, maybe in a year's time. We've already done that for SES Jordan, a European tour. We've moved it from late May, early June this year to late May, early June next year. For Crash Test Dummies, we work in the Netherlands, and together with the German agent, who is the European agent, we started the idea of moving it to next year, and he took over that idea, and the whole tour has been moved exactly 1 year with some other shows. But that's fully confirmed rescheduling, but we also have shadow tours. We have a second tour that's totally secret to the public, but the venue and us, we know, or the promoter and us, we know. We have this in place in case the original tour gets cancelled. And And then nobody talks about the original dates. I mean, the promoter has lost money, and we've lost money, and the artists have lost money because of what happens. The crew have lost money, and nobody talks about it. You just accept your losses, and that's the attitude that, indeed, as far as I know, most agents have, and almost everybody in the business has. And I think it's a very healthy attitude, because we don't know this territory. This is totally uncharted, and we also have, I think, another responsibility that's maybe even bigger. We're here talking as a sector, as a business, but we've got a bigger responsibility, and that's for the health of the population.
Okay. Christof, just one question. Do you think, you mentioned that cooperation, do you think there is nowadays a bigger solidarity within the company or within the industry because of these situations? Are the agents talking more with each other? Are the promoters talking more about each other? I mean, you are the member of Europe, so is there any experience you can share from other countries with us?
I mean, we just feel that the need of exchanging information is so important, and that was Europe. I mean, we as a festival association, I think we already had a good vibe, you know, exchanging information. But I feel that even more right now, and we're not talking about just the independent festivals. You know, we had conversations with Live Nation, we had conversations with the big other players, of, you know, big global companies. I think there is a kind of openness to share information. What are the current problems? You know, we're talking right now, is one of the topics is you know, will the fees be the same? 2 weeks ago, everybody said, yeah, they're going to be the same, rebookings. That strategy changed. And certainly, I think a lot of big companies, also independent festivals, say we have to talk to each other and maybe say, could we reduce the fees? Because there is, as Paulina said, there is a big risk besides the losses we have. When do the sales of festival tickets pick up? Do we lose sponsorship for next year? And if we just do the rebooking on the same level, we have no idea if the risk will be even higher for next year to have a half full festival. And are we the ones as promoters to take the full risk? Or is maybe an artist also, and we're not talking about the really tiny bands, but are the bigger bands able to get you a kind of a reduction? And if the festival is sold out, in the end, everything will be fine next year, you get the full fee back. I think these kind of discussions and these kind of exchange of things about, as I mentioned, you know, what is the consumer law about the vouchers in Belgium and Holland and Germany? Because now in Hungary, talking about the same solution. What is the solution of the government in Switzerland? What are the support programs? Because a lot of us are involved in associations as well. And as we all know, you know, certain countries have acted really quick and good. In this case, I'm really happy to be, you know, to see that the Swiss government really acted quickly in terms of giving loans out for 20 billion for mid-sized companies, and you had the money within a day just to prevent bankruptcy, stuff like this. And if we can exchange this information and see what is France doing, what is Holland doing, what are the good examples, it could help. It could help, you know. And but I think
what's the funding systems that you are that you can apply for in Switzerland?
I mean, Switzerland decided really quickly. I think it was about a week or 10 days after the lockdown, that you can basically, as a mid-sized company, it doesn't matter which sector you're working in, you can go to your bank and apply for a loan for liquidity. And it's a loan that the state grants for it. And that means within 24 days, and it's 10% of your turnover of the year. That means it gives you a kind of, you know, liquid perspective to pay
solves your cash flow problems.
Yeah, but also for restaurants, you know, for small businesses. And that means if you do the bookkeeping at the end of the year, that doesn't mean it's like this, it's for 2 years, it's your money. because in the end we have to make sure that we do all the accounts at the end of the year. If we have too much loans, it still will collapse, and that won't happen with these loans.
That's a great solution if you take if you consider that this is only a cash flow problem.
Yeah.
If this is more than a cash flow problem, then that doesn't solve it.
No, that was the first step, because I think one of the first steps is just prevent bankruptcy. You know, that was the first step, and the second step is, I mean, for events is you have the option, if you have to cancel or postpone your event, you can go to your state and apply for a covering of part of the costs. I mean, if we postpone, still we have employees, salaries, rental stuff. So we can go to our states, and right now for our festival, to this department of the state. The state of Switzerland pays half of it, the local state pays half of it, and this money will go to culture. Different sectors have similar programs. So in the end, I think, besides the short work possibility, I think we can cover a part of the damage for the festivals, for club shows, with that program. And
it doesn't matter if you're a part of a bigger company. You know, if you said that this is for any companies, so it doesn't matter if you're a part of a bigger conglomerate, or if you're a daughter company of a bigger company or something. It doesn't matter.
In the first moment, of course, they said it's for it's for smaller artists, it's for non-commercial events, etc. But they extended it because it's a lot of jobs on these companies as well, on the professional promoters. And of course, there will be restrictions that, for instance, let's say a Live Nation, maybe even if they get any kind of funding for the damage, the money can't go out. It's the same with airlines, it's the same with other companies. But this is a working process right now, but we feel like there is a confidence that a part of the costs can be covered, not all of that, but it could lead to the fact to get over it and to get to the next year. And I think most of I heard other, ideas from various countries, and I think Germany is also quite far ahead in this. I think that's very essential, that we see a kind of a light at the horizon. There is some help, and I think all the governments here, at least, they're acting really understandable and reasonable. To see, you are a big company, you have, a lot of employees. We don't, we need you in the business, because a lot of, as you said, freelancers, companies are dependent on us. If we are not taking place anymore, the whole festival and promoters industry, all the smaller business will go away. And I think that's also a part of the discussion.
Okay,
I believe
sorry, Rob. I just wanted to say that we have just 10 minutes left, so I think it's a good timing and a perfect timing for opening up this panel. Christof mentioned exchange of information is the crucial thing right now, so please feel free to ask the panelists more questions. So
I just wanted to add one thing. I think on the Impala website, there's an overview of measures in place in various European countries that have something to do with the cultural industries. I haven't looked at it very recently, but I think it's a very useful overview. And Impala is an umbrella organization for the record companies, I think. Independent labels. Yeah.
I think
that was it.
Challenge at large at the music sector has been that, the music sector is such a small body, for example, compared to the restaurant unions in Finland. We're very fragmented as an industry. Are we looking at events, or are we looking at music or the creative sector, or, we would be much stronger if we would be looking at events, congresses, music, creative sector, at large, because we all are in the same boat. Everything that about us has to do with event at the end of the day, and all of those together would be much stronger already than and would have already a proper say. For example, in Finland, it's restaurants are very organized. They all belong to one union, and that union is terrifically strong. They have some 17 lawyers and another 15 people helping in PR and press and that type of thing. So it's our challenge, I believe, at our sector at large has that we are fragmented to so many organizations that we haven't really in Finland gotten our voice properly heard.
Yeah.
Same everywhere, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have received a question here on the chat from one of the viewers asking, over the last years, we've seen a lot of monopoly things happening in the agent side of the industry. I'm trying to translate it over here. With some of the major US agents moving into Europe, buying up other agencies. Will that change after this? Will we be back to more independent agents again? Will it be more? I know some of the big agencies have laid off a lot of agents. Will they start up their own independent agency? What do you think will happen? Or will we see a more monopoly kind of situation like we have with the promoters, Live Nation and AEG basically being very big in the whole world? Will that happen with agents, or is this causing some changes?
I have some input on that. See, since I'm in the US.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Rob, I finally get to meet you. How are you doing?
Good to see you. What's about time? Crises bring us together.
Exactly. Is there anybody else from the US on the call or no? I guess not, right? Well, anyway, speaking from a US perspective here, what's happening with some of the agencies is the debt that some of the big agencies, I'm not going to quote any names right now, but I'm sure some of you can figure it out. They're carrying so much debt that I think that this is going to break up some agencies. That's just my feeling. Mm-hmm. But from people that I talk to on the inside also that are really good friends of mine at the different major US agencies, they're saying that there's a lot of discontent among the agents at some of the companies that were promised a lot of things, because when buyouts were going to happen and big money was going to come in, hedge fund money, and these guys were all going to get rich with their stock options. Well, that ain't happening right now. And I think you're seeing a lot of people talking to different people within companies about possibly starting new companies and going out on their own. And I think that that's what you're going to see some. Obviously, I think some of the major, a company like CAA will survive this because they have such liquidity and a lot of backers. But I really think our industry is going to change dramatically after this. I don't think, if it lasts as long as I think it's going to last, I think we're going to see a lot of hierarchy changes and who's running what. And I think you're going to see a lot of young agents move into either going out on their own or starting new companies with a whole different paradigm shift. And I don't mean paradigm, the agency, but this is my humble input on what's happening over here. There's just a lot of, I think what happens is the shock of all of this is finally hitting home more than anything. I think a lot of people wishfully were thinking, yeah, this will be over in a month, month and a half, 2 months. I think it's finally settled in over here. And, I think this shit is going to hit the fan between you and I. I think that's what's going to happen.
Well, I hope Christof, his country, will bring a quick fix, because a professor from the Berends University says he might have a vaccine ready by October this year. And millions and millions of, but oh well. Anyway, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So those new agencies might be called paradigm shift.
Right.
So we rely on you, Christof, at this point.
Yeah. I hear these kind of rumors from all countries, whether it's Sweden, America, whatever, where is this vaccine, and then certain people say it's not going to be there for the next 2 years. So I think we have to be pragmatic, and we also have to try and work on new concepts for shows, lobbying for our business, because I think at the current state, I think if every politician would take a decision about opening the market right now, you can't blame the coronavirus anymore. They would be blamed. And I think a lot of politicians act this way right now. So they decide, and they're very, very cautious. And as we said, you know, we will be the last month for the big events. So we have to maybe also proactively work on new concepts for club shows, establish certain venues where, you know, security distance and everything will be fulfilled. It might sound strange at the moment, but probably this is a kind of a solution for January, February, March, to have like shows with 600 people in venues of 1,800 people, which are established in the right way. And at least we can start promote again, get this feeling again, get artists out to maybe play 3 shows in 3 days rather than one show in a big venue. I think we have to think out of the box and lobby for our needs. I think that's very essential.
Okay,
anybody else who wants? Sorry, Rana.
Yeah. I just got a question here. It's perfect now to continue with Christof. Nikki, you said, you mentioned something about the medical situation or the hygiene. So your idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, it kind of follows on from what Christof said, actually, because I've been probably like you all feeling very helpless about the situation, on millions of WhatsApp groups, sharing information, trying to help the best you can. And I think the lobbying idea is great. You know, it's trying to get your ideas out there and your voices, because I think that you guys, you are all creative, you all know how to run events, how to manage people, what technologies work, you know, what will and won't work. So I think you guys need to kind of come together and put plans and scenarios forward to the government, because I worry that the government will try and impose things on you, so you can't open, you can't do things. So unless we kind of all get ideas out there which could work to get your businesses up and running in a safe way that will get, you know, customer confidence back, you know, ticket sales back, you know, it's like, you know, working together is the only way. And to get that message to the right people, which obviously Christof's in the best place to do, to lobby, because not everyone knows how to go to your local MP or government. You know, there are lots of groups like UK Music, the Nighttime Association in the UK, there's AFEM, there are so many organisations doing things. I mean, it must be difficult trying to even work with them all and have a common goal. If that makes sense. Sorry, rambling. Yeah,
it's what the government wants us to do, for instance. They say, come on, sectors, all the sectors, bring us plans, and plans along the lines of what you just said, Nikki. We have a pop coalition in the Netherlands, and it's always been there, and it was always very small, but now it's growing because people now need that to work together. It should be about more than just pop, of course, but.
Can we bring in Nana? Are you able to talk a little bit, because you told us a little bit about you were infected in March and had quite a long, tough period. Can you just fill us in shortly, because there was a lot of people that was not attending the meeting when you said that. Will you fill us in a little bit about that?
Yeah, okay. Well, it happened pretty early. I was infected in London, for sure. That is what happened. But it doesn't matter when and how. It matters that it was I was diagnosed pretty early. And then I was panicked because nobody else had this new virus. And I had mild symptoms. On the 10th day, I had pneumonia. I was really bad. I couldn't breathe anymore. And so this is my new thing. I carry this everywhere. Oximeter, I have to put and see if I have oxygen enough. So after 3 weeks I was with pneumonia. First of all, I saw that what altogether people, when they help each other, and the scientists or people in any areas, like in our area, if they have a good cooperation, they can do miracles. So I realized this with the medical staff and doctors. and that the system is working. So I'm really grateful about this, and also that the Greek government very early took measures, strict measures, and so we had good numbers at the end. So after my experience in the hospital, which is really scary, and this is my concern regarding the shows as a promoter now, when it will be the good moment to have a lot of people in the shows not being under any risk to be infected. For me, it's my big concern, because I know what this awful dangerous and how dangerous is this virus. So I have another, first of all, I'm so happy that I'm out of the hospital, I'm recovering, I'm still recovering. And I was wondering, so maybe when all the countries, they start to think about lighting measures. Okay, of course, and this is something that we have to do. We have to go outside. We have to go to the next level. But we have to think that we have to be very careful, because there is not a medicine and then there is not a vaccine, not any. Maybe there will be a second wave. Maybe we'll be more prepared in the second wave, but for all the people it will be pretty scary. And if you allow me, I would like to tell something, because I have to continue something that Christof said. For the shows, very quickly, we have to think that we have to cooperate all together in order to work how we'll survive in this business, how not to be any more greed, and for artists, promoters, everybody in this business. So we have to lower our demands and think that maybe a lot of people will be very poor in the next year, and they cannot afford to come to our shows. Not only they will not want to take the risk to be with other people. So I really thank you for today. It was great.
Oh, thank you, Nana. Thank you for sharing the whole thing with us. It's very, it's tough to hear from somebody who's really
stay safe and healthy.
Yeah, we will. Nick Hotz from Chamenko, you had a little comment as well for Nick?
Just a couple of comments, kind of following on from Nikki and from Nana, and some other comments from Christof too. One is that we're in the business of mass events. Mass events, whether they're 50 people in a small club or 50,000 people in a huge field, we're in the business of mass events. People get close together, particularly standing audiences. Seated audiences is a slightly different scenario, because of course it is possible to imagine a theater where you have an empty seat next to you, or a cinema or whatever. It doesn't work very well for standing events, and you have a business model which, I like the idea in theory that you have a club and you have 1/3 capacity and you have 3 nights with the same band, so you end up selling the same number of tickets. It's hardly going to work as an economic model for the artist. It seems quite remote as an idea for touring artists, at least. It might well work for a local artist, because if you're a Zurich artist and you're playing in Switzerland, then the idea of going to Berends and spending 3 nights where you might have had 1 night before, well, why not? It's no big deal. We're in the same boat, of course, as sporting events, as any other mass event. The uncertainty for next year has lots of repercussions. As has already been said, we're in the business that will be freed of restrictions last. So we were
hit the first, and we will be freed the last.
Yeah, we'll be freed the last. Whatever happens, we'll be freed the last, because we're not essential to the overall economy. Nobody, of course, wants to hurt the entertainment business or the live entertainment business or the sports business, and they're important sectors and all the rest of it, but they're not essential. So the lobbying of the government is, obviously the thing that we would all like is to have our overheads covered so that we could stay in business even, and survive until the point where we can actually be proper running a business again. That varies from country to country. In Switzerland or Germany, that might well be quite a semi-realistic scenario. If you're in Eastern Europe, or perhaps in Southern Europe or in Italy, that might be quite a remote scenario. If you're in Turkey, just forget it. The government just says it's your problem. So there are issues around the uncertainty, which is, you know, we all hope there will be a vaccine or there'll be a treatment that's effective. Those things are just at this point speculative dreams. We don't know if they'll happen at all or when they'll happen. They might happen in 6 months, they might happen in 2 years. If they happen in 2 years or not at all, we have a problem for next year, not just for this year. We obviously all have a very serious problem for this year, which we might survive if next year was something resembling a normal year. It'll probably be down because of, you know, people have less money in their pockets and this, that, and the other. But if it's actually worse than that, because the virus is not yet controlled and it keeps coming back, and therefore governments feel forced to continue banning effectively mass events, then we're in really big trouble. And whether you're a venue or a concert promoter or an agent or an artist, you have the same and similar problem.
Nick, can I just quickly comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's already a lot of this discussion in Finland, is that a lot of service industries are commenting that because there's no events happening, their industry doesn't work either. It really hit me that people start to understand this when individual taxi companies called me up and said, like, please do everything you have in your power to keep events happening, because our customers ended when events ended.
Right, I understand
so
that.
So there's a lot of snowball effect that I do believe different parties will start understanding much more.
Sure, but the scenario, you know, the herd immunity scenario where enough of the population has been exposed to the virus to have immunity is also a very long way off. And the cost of that scenario seems to be, as has been tried in Sweden and Britain, seems to be too high politically, socially. The health systems can't cope with that. So it doesn't look like a likely scenario. You know, if we come out of this by the end of the summer, that the governments, and if the virus is still around, and every time they start relaxing the restrictions, it starts growing again, then it's hard to imagine that governments would actually just say, okay, what the hell, you know, we need the concert business, we need the sports business, and people will get infected. It's really hard. 1% of people will die. We're really sorry. It's hard to imagine that most governments would find that an acceptable scenario. So I think there's a deeper, bigger problem. And one more point I'd like to say is one really misses the European Union. One really misses any kind of Europe-wide response to this. Every country does their own thing. Some countries more intelligently, some more stupidly. And there's almost no coordination of regulations. Some people, of course, some countries follow other countries, but there's no single body deciding any of this stuff. And of course,
our industry doesn't.
Our
industry doesn't come together before this is Europe-wide solved.
There is a good paper from Brussels.
Let me just finish this and then I'll shut up. Hold on. If for a touring artist, if you don't have Germany, for example, or France, you don't have really a tour. And if you have 2 or 3 big countries you don't have, it doesn't matter that things are okay in, I don't know, Finland or Russia or Greece. It doesn't work. You don't have an international touring business. Whether the agents are out of their jobs or reform new agents or not doesn't change that. The European-wide touring business, be it on a club level or an arena level, functions because it's a European-wide market. And yet every country has their own way of handling the situation, which makes it almost impossible to imagine how one can return to a European-wide market without a complete, being completely past the epidemic. I'll shut up.
Can I just ask you before you shut up, Nick? Sorry, just before you shut up, Nick, let me just ask you, you're located in Turkey. How are you? You don't have any support programs whatsoever, you said. How are you?
There are no specific support for I think Harm, if he's still there, will confirm this, but there are no specific support programs for the entertainment business at all. Zero. There are some general support programs for business. So there is a furloughing scheme which pays 50% of staff. If you close your office, you can get 50% of your staff wages paid up to a very low cap. So it kind of covers an assistant's wage, half of it. and the other half of it you're supposed to cover yourself as a business, which of course is, how do you do that when you have no income? As of now, support in Turkey has been minimal, and of course Turkey is a much poorer country in terms of assets in the bank than Switzerland or Germany. But it's also a political factor, is that the government in Turkey really doesn't care about entertainment, rather the opposite, they don't like it.
Okay, thanks a lot, Nick.
Yeah, it's commented here as well on the comment line. Rainy Whitebread is saying that, yeah, I think there is no way to do proper European tours before next year because every countries are doing their own politics.
Can I add some information from Brazil? It's very different from Europe and the US.
Yes,
Hi. My name is Noemi. I'm from Opus Entertainment. And here, this business is really disorganized, as you told. And here is the same. But we connect all the branches of our market with artists, promoters, venues, and then we create we have some associations, but we connected all of them, and we decided to organize 5 main branches to discuss with the government. One of them is create a connection, direct connection with the government to create laws or some measures to our segment. Number 2 is to create some kind of help to our market workers, because in Brazil they are very informal. They don't have any kind of, if our market stopped, if the show is stopped, we have a lot of people from here that will not work and really have nothing to eat. So we asked for a help for the government for these poor people, and they agree with us, but just not, they decided to give it to people who doesn't have any kind of a way to earn money. So they gave to everybody that there's no formal work, 600 of reais. It's nothing, but enough to not dead of without eating, you know. The third point was the taxes for our business. We are asking to the government to lower the taxes or not, or because as we are not doing nothing, so it's impossible to pay the taxes. This is another point we are still discussing. The first 2 is already done. The 4th was about the ticketing. I work with Disney on Ice, with a lot of shows here in Brazil, international shows, and we have sold more than 40,000 tickets. And so the government agreed that we are not, we don't need to give back to the audience the money they've already paid. If I confirm that until next year, 1.5 years after the COVID stops here in Brazil, I will bring the show. So I can just allocate the tickets, you know. This, for us at that moment, it's a very important thing, because I have more than 200 workers in my company. And I have venues in Brazil, a lot of venues. So if I don't have some kind of support from the government, I will stop my business. And as a lot of companies here in Brazil connected with entertainment. And the last topic we are still discussing with the government is how we will organize the opening, because of course here in Brazil we are discussing what is safe for the audience, for everybody. And at the same time, we know the financial part that's the government are discussing. You know, our president is very controversial, and this is some point that as Trump is. So he's very. Our government is saying that you need to get out to the streets and make business happen again. There are a lot of people that don't agree with that. We are everybody locked in our homes, and this is a discussion that government is deciding. But despite that, we are organizing the reopening, no matter when it will happen. Maybe it will happen just next year, but we are organizing that in these groups. So we are creating the measures just to help the government to think about our business, because as you said, it's not the first need in our society. It's not so important to them, but at the same time, in these moments that we have this lockdown, the artists, we are organizing a lot of lives here in Brazil. So the artists are supporting people here. People are saying that our business is important in a way, you know. We are giving to the people some happiness, you know, because this is really difficult. It's a really difficult time to everybody. So our business can give some dream, can give some help to everybody. And we are doing that here in a way. So we believe that we'll receive some support from the society in a way. And the government, even if they don't like us, they are working with us, because we connect each other with a lot of companies. We are more than 200 companies working together. So it's impossible not to listen us, you know. And that's my advice to you. Just connect with other companies, connect with the other. We have some strength. If we will work together, we can make changes.
Thank you, Nomiya. Very nice to have an update from Brazil as well. Nice to hear that. I think we have Nick Palmley.
Greg, yes, please give us a short introduction.
Yeah, I mean,
UK.
Hi everyone. I can give you a quick update from the UK at the moment. I chair the UK Live Music Group, which is sort of the live music arm of UK Music, which is the sort of principal body that deals with government. It's pretty fucked, really, but I think everyone's sort of in the same boat. There's a kind of a number of schemes that have been put into place, including a furlough scheme where companies can sort of furlough their staff and get up to 80% of the salary covered. There's also the package of loans were announced, but unfortunately, unlike Switzerland, most companies in the live music industry don't qualify for the loans, because technically they're actually at the moment all insolvent, because none of them are making any money or selling any tickets. So the £200 billion big huge headline that came out has proved to be completely useless. My real concern, I think it's something that Nick really touched on as well, is the gap between the end of any government support systems once the various phases of lockdown end, and the point at which the industry is back up and running and people have money in the bank again, which obviously needs shows to have happened so that agents are earning commission, promoters are earning money, and the whole ecosystem can survive. And my concern at the moment is that gap seems to be widening almost on a daily basis. In the UK specifically, we're sort of tackling it we have sort of specific asks to the government at the moment. So the first is that we're asking for an extension on the refund period of any tickets. At the moment it's 14 days, which obviously doesn't really help anybody at all. So the idea is that if we could protect some of the cash flow in the industry, that's going to make a huge difference. We're asking for VAT breaks on tickets as well. I don't know whether we're going to get them or not, but it's certainly something that doesn't cost the government any money. It's effectively just income that they otherwise won't get, because there won't be an industry to support the ticket sales to have the VAT anyway. Obviously, we're lobbying for a continuation of sort of any furlough schemes and government schemes that there are, and also a protection from eviction on commercial premises as well. We've got, I think at the last count, according to the Music Venue Trust, there's 554 venues that are under imminent threat of closure. And a lot of that pressure is coming from commercial rents. So landlords who are basically saying, well, sorry that you're closed, but you still owe us the rent. Now that's protected by law under a new coronavirus bill until the beginning of July. But obviously after that point, none of those venues are going to reopen if they're then subject to those huge rent liabilities. And that's the same in other commercial offices as well. If you're a small promoter or you're a small agency, and you're still suffering all of your kind of full office cost, and it's a huge part of your overhead. So I think that then beyond that as well, it's a case of actually asking the government for really specific information about how audiences are handled once shows are able to go back on. So one thing that we really didn't have in the UK, when we have the guidance from the government has been not as good as a lot of other European nations, where they've been very specific about bans on mass gatherings, which obviously has an implication in terms of refunding of force majeure. But the other thing we're asking for is really clear instructions as to how events can restart, and at the point at which they do restart, how do they happen? Like, what does social distancing look like? Like, what are your kind of hygiene, what hygiene kind of things you need to be thinking about? How should people be interacting with each other at mass events? But like Nick said, I think, to be honest, as long as there's social distancing in place, I think it's going to be a long time until everything's back up and running, because people just aren't going to want to go to shows and rub shoulders with other strangers that they don't know when there's no vaccine and there's no cure. So as long as that is the situation, then I'm feeling kind of very fearful about the situation as a whole, to be honest.
Thank you very much, Greg. Is there anybody else who want to chip in and tell a little bit about their situation? There's been some people talking about ticketing, which is a big subject that I think we will try to do another panel about shortly. So I
would like to add something about the US part of this, especially speaking to what Nick's talking about, how fractured the European marketplace is. If you think the European marketplace is fractured, you should live in this country under our current government. It's frightening. No one has a clue what's going on. Las Vegas wants to open up. We all know what Las Vegas is. And they're under the illusion that all these people are going to come back and no one's going to be touring to see any artist to play Las Vegas. So there's a new coalition that started in the United States called the National Independent Venue Association. And they just penned an open letter to Congress calling for a federal intervention, because many of the venues, from First Avenue in Minneapolis to, the House of Blues, if this continues onward, they will just not exist. So they've just wrote an open letter to Nancy Pelosi, who's the Speaker of the House over here, trying to get them to lobby Capitol Hill to target the entertainment industry at that level, at the smaller level. And so I just think, if you think it's a mess in Europe not being cohesive, like over here, it's just nobody. There's a few states that get together and they come up with a plan, but it doesn't matter in the United States if you don't have artists touring. You can open 3 states and have venues and stuff opened up, but who's going to tour? So
yes. Yeah, there's a few ticketing companies who already proposed that if this goes on until over the summer, which now
which it will, that
it's evident. They were saying that 30% of their clientele, venues and promoters would go into bankruptcy when and if this situation prolonges after that. It's I wonder what the situation then is. To Ivana's question as to what's going to happen, then I agree with many of what you've said. We're going to see all of it. We're going to see the Chinese knocking the doors of promoters, of recruiting. They've tried doing that already in Finland, for example. People are going to leave their companies and go for something else. They're going to go for something completely new style of doing stuff. We don't even know what that is yet. However, I do know that the biggest entertainment companies in the world have laid off most of their staff, but not people in VR and HR, and virtual reality type of developments. So it's we don't even know what our competition will be once this year is over.
Good point.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe describes the situation best. We don't know. And we need to think in many different directions, and that's what makes it very complicated. but it's also a challenge. And if we are in the creative industries, we better be creative and work together.
Yeah.
And I do think, I mean, we've had an economic crisis of about 8 years, 2008 to 2016, roughly. We've lived through that. We're going to live through this crisis as well, but there will be victims, of course, and unfortunately, also in terms of health. But we'll get through this as long as we work together. And I've learned from psychologists, this one in the house, that thinking positive, trying to think as positive as you can, also helps in finding solutions, makes you stronger in that direction. So it's not just a mindset that you have, it's also a mindset that you need to try to give yourself, and because it does help. And it also
whilst
helps.
Preparing for the worst.
Always be realistic. Always be realistic. Yeah.
Because if things get better, you always survive that one.
Definitely.
Okay.
Just if I can cut in on that very quickly. Sometimes the right thing to do is to cut your losses. Sometimes, which is terrible. It's really, you've built up a business after 20 years or 30 years, and sometimes there's a difference between an economic crisis where you're just not making money that you wanted, that you would have otherwise made, but you can trim your activities to having no income for a year. That's a big difference.
Yes.
And so we're in a much more serious situation than we were at the beginning of the economic crisis 10 years ago, whenever it was.
Yes,
well,
I agree.
To be honest, in the Netherlands, with the support that we have, that's not even directed at the cultural sector. There is some support for the cultural sector, but the general support that we have means that my company will survive even with no turnover whatsoever, as long as they extend these new measures.
Is it too late for me to move to the Netherlands?
Oh no, you're more than welcome.
I have a British passport. I'm not even a fucking EU citizen anymore.
As far as I'm concerned, you're more than welcome, Nick.
Well, Nick, you can see if they let in Rob, they let in anyone. So
they didn't.
I was born there.
I was born here, man, in Amsterdam. If they let in you, Ronnie, they let in everyone.
It's going to come down to two things ultimately. One is the level of support that people can get, and two, how much cash they've got in the bank, because how long they can last. The companies that in markets that don't have much support and don't have much cash in the bank are going to be the victim of this whole situation.
Exactly.
As harsh as it is, it just comes down to how much money there is and to how long people can keep going for. It's different if I think if you're an independent operator, it's a little bit different. If you're running a company with employees and overheads, that's the equation.
Yeah. Well, we've got overhead too, of course, but in companies with employees in the Netherlands get 90% from the salary subsidized, up to 2,500 per employee per month.
That's great for as long as it lasts. But my point
for as long as it lasts. Yeah.
So it's going to come down to that gap again.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I would like
to. At least you don't have a Live Nation burn rate of 200 million a month. I don't know if you saw the article that we ran after they cut back salaries, and Michael said he's not going to take payroll any longer. The burn rate is still 200 million a month. I have no idea how long they can last.
Yes.
In a situation like that.
That's up to their investors and their venture capitalists behind them, of course, like United. That's up to them. I guess they will decide.
And then when you look at some of the major agencies and the kind of real estate that they own around the world, because the big companies like William Morris and CA, they own their own properties and buildings. The nuts on that it have to be phenomenal. So it's going to be. I think there's going to be a shakeup. I really do at the bigger companies.
Yeah, not too long ago we still thought that it would be not too long ago we thought they would be the big ones that would really come strong out of this one. But that's not self-evident. It's actually, it might be the ones that, move on and create something completely new, small, that actually survive this one.
Right.
You got two problems if you're big. One is you're probably carrying a whole heap of debt, which isn't going to go away, and it's private debt, and you have to pay it. and the tolerance of big investors, of what are they called, investment capitalists, is pretty thin. They're in the business of making lots of money. And the other problem is you carry a huge overhead. And navigating those two problems is good luck. I'm glad I'm not Michael Rapino.
So for Live Nation, the question is, when do they need to refinance their debts again? Later this year, I guess. I mean, they do it every year, don't they?
I think they are in constant process of refinance because that's how it works. But they have been making money, relative. I mean, they haven't been paying back their debt, but they've been making money. So they've been fine. Their share price was going up. Now, of course, it's down in the cellar. And there are other companies, AEG in particular, who are much better protected because they're private and because they don't have debt. They're swimming in, they've been a hugely profitable business for a long time. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
but the agencies like
filthy rich.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, but even filthy rich people run out of money at some point. But CAA and William Morris and Paradigm and UT, I think they all have huge piles of debt because the way that they grew was by buying smaller agencies, attracting agents, and cutting agency commission drastically on tours, on music artists, because they're making money on TV actors and all the rest of it. So they've got a very serious problem. It's not my problem, but it's a serious one. I got my own problem.
I know we had some viewers from both CAA, United Talent, and Paradigm, but I think they probably left the building. So,
hey, it's been really lovely. I'm sure many of you will continue the conversation, but I'm actually already half an hour late from my next.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Probably.
Happy to speak with you.
Enjoy your lunch, Paulina.
Yeah, I think it was a great panel. So there's so much more need of a conversation and exchange, and so many questions. So I think it was a good start for the next session we will start. And so thanks to all of you. Thanks for the question. Thanks for being here, and stay well and healthy. So yeah, Ronnie, thank you.
Yeah, I want to say
thank you, VIP.
On behalf of VIP, I would like to say thank you. Normally, you don't have a good idea for yourself for a long time, so probably others will do these kind of events as well. And we will at least definitely continue doing business meetings like this. So hopefully you'll join in next time as well and discuss other ideas as well. So thank you for joining in. I really appreciate it, and stay well, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.